Hello there, I'm Neil Foreman from NF Auto Development and welcome to the Foreman Cars assembly video. We're going to take you through most of the basic stages of putting one of these cars together. As you can see, there's one here upside down, which is the first stage. We've mounted it on a couple of trestles to make it a comfortable working height. Matthew's on the camera.
We're
going to be changing over throughout the build. You've already got the build manual. Accompanying that with this video should give you a good idea of what it's all about.
Right, start at the beginning I suppose. Floor pan, here we go. First thing, sharp file, run it around the edge so you don't tear your fingers to shreds when you're working with it. Place it on the chassis, good side up. So this side will eventually make the inside of your car. Position it in the middle, left and right, and as back as far as it'll go to the welded steel floor pan. Clamp it into position, on each side probably best, but I can't reach over there. So run your pencil round the inside of the tubes, right round, all 8 sides in there, and then turn it over. Gives you your tube position so you can see from above what you're getting into below. Mark halfway between your pencil line and the outside of your floor pan to give you your rivet positions. Spaced at about 50mm spacing all the way around and up through the middle. Run along, centre punch, hammer on each mark, pop in. Then drill each corner, 4 corners, with a cleco. Hold it in place. If you haven't got a cleco tool, now's the time to get one, because you're going to need it all the way around the chassis, every chassis panel. To do it properly, you need a cleco tool. One in each corner, then drill out the rest of your holes. Floor pan ready to rivet. As you can see, this panel has now been drilled all the way around, and the front panel also marked in a similar fashion, putting the downside up first and marking from the inside and then drilling all the way around on that. You'll also notice that on this panel there's these 8 larger holes which are drain holes. This front will be exposed to the elements, so you want a drain hole in each of these 8 corners. Once you've drilled the holes, similar tool, this is a drill with a file handle, but the deburr or anything, run around them all, deburring them, make sure you get a nice tight flush finish. Also, before you rivet it on, remember to do this panel inside, the bulkhead panel. Easy access, drilling down into there while you've got this panel ready to be sealed now with your poly sealant that comes with the kit, and stainless rivets on the bottom. 4mm these holes are. Thank you. You then need to apply your sealant, a nice flat bead along, crossing your rivet holes, like so, all the way around. So when you rivet your panel down, it will squeeze either side of the rivets and seal any gaps that you're going to have going into your chassis tubes, which you don't want. Also run a bead down this centre tube. There's no need to rivet it, but that just stops any water from getting underneath and also stops it vibrating. Okay, final job while the chassis is upside down is to seal around the floor pan. Cleanest, neatest way to do it is to mask, as I've done here, each side of the seam. Run your sealant around, then with a gloved or wet finger, smooth the sealant into the seam, pushing it in, like so, and then just peel your tape off all the way around. Leaves you with a nice clean edge. There's the floor pan finish there. As a precaution, it's worth, with some clear silicone sealant, just bob in each rivet head to stop any water ingression into your chassis tubes. Okay, your next step is the 2 side panels in the cockpit. You'll have the chassis on its side for this, as you can see we have. And firstly, mark them out. On here you can see I've put masking tape to stop it marking a panel, which is extra important if you don't plan on carpeting your car, so you don't have any marks or anything on your cockpit panels. It just looks clean. These are slightly wider spaced, about 60mm, which you can do, which I should have said for the floor pan, using one of these aircraft tool for rivet spacings, or calculator and tape measure, bit of elastic marked out at equal intervals. You then clamp it on like I have, nice spacing all around, drill through, including the two panels here, the rear one on top of the forward one. Drill right through, cleco it on, don't final fix it. With the chassis up the right way, one of your first jobs is to seal the floor pan. Same as we did the underside, mask each side of the seam, run your polyurethane around, smooth it out, peel off your tape. Make it one of the last jobs of your day, so it's got time to cure before you start drilling again and getting swarf and bits stuck in the sealant. Okay, with your chassis up the right way now, we've sealed the floor pan. Next step, with your temporary fixed side panels, mark through your seat belt holes with a pencil, take them off and then drill a clearance hole through. About 15mm is big enough, it's 11mm clearance size, so that's fine. Then we recommend just stick a bit of cardboard in the floor pan, stop it getting marked and scratched. Again, essential if you don't plan on carpeting your car, but not so essential if you do, but it's nice to do it anyway. You then need to take out your side panels to do, if I can get this one out, the rear chassis panels. On this car they're slightly different because it's a V12 engine, so they're at an angle, but normally they'd be flat mounted on the bulkhead. Drop them in. Again, masking tape, just only need to do the bottom edge for now. Mark your spacing along, put the panel in. You may need to trim a little around your centre spine and around the bottom seat belt mount and handbrake mount there. Drill along the bottom, same spacing as all the others just to keep it looking nice. And then, as you can see, I've already done it here, but mark through the handbrake cable mount from behind and drill a clearance hole again. You then need to drill through both panels in the corner. Put your side panel back on and drill through both panels in the corner to clamp them together. The top you don't need to do until you've got the bulkhead fixed, and then drill through the bulkhead, through the alley panel, into the chassis and fix them all as one.
Here's the passenger's footrest. It's been drilled in 4 places, front and back flanges, right through the floor. In this case we've butted it up against the front chassis tube, fixed it with stainless hexagon bolts and large penny washers up from the floor with the nuts on top. Okay, we're going to start putting the wishbone bushes together. These are the front wishbones, and in your kit you'll have 2 of these polyurethane top hats and 1 stainless sleeve per bush, and you'll have some grease. So we put some grease inside the wishbone, and a little bit also around the top hats, 1 in that side, bit of grease on there, 1 in that side, bit of grease also on the inside and on the stainless sleeve, and then you can push that in on the vise or any surface until it's flush, and there you go, 1 bush in. We're assembling the bottom front wishbones. This is the forward ball joint. It comes like this as a bent forging. What you need to do is cut off this piece, grind what you've got left flat, make it a little bit as long as you possibly can, mount the ball joint through the bottom of the wishbone and bolt it through these 2 holes. and then you can then drill through the wishbone and make a third hole in the ball joint forging. And there's your 3 mounts for your ball joint. You can give it a wash, paint it black, and it's ready to assemble. Okay, this is the rear lower wishbone. This is the toe links. They fit between these 2 plates on the wishbone, spaced in the middle with washers. 2-inch nut and bolt, 2-inch bolt with a nylock nut, both sides. This is going to be the side where the bolt is on the top. Always drop the bolt in from the top and put the nut underneath. Also, we've already threaded now the ball joints in the front lower wishbones. Again, nylocks underneath, bolt from the top. And we've prepared and painted the top ball joints at the front, put the nylock, the locking nuts on, and we've screwed them in to the bushes. Okay, assembling the shock absorbers and springs. These are the rears. The rears are 14-inch open length and with the fattest springs on them. You should be able to extend the shock to its fully open length, put the spring seat right down to the bottom of the thread, drop the spring over and fit the collar without compressing the spring on the rears. You can then tighten up the spring seat. The fronts, you'll need to compress the springs a little. These are just a standard pair of spring compressors which we've ground down a little bit to be able to use them on these springs. Once you've compressed the spring just a little bit, the spring collar will fall in, undo the spring compressors, and then you can wind it up to whatever you need. Here you can see the pedal assembly fitted to the car. Now we've modified this one. You can see down there that corner where the steering column will come through. We have to cut away a bit of the pedal assembly as it says in the build manual and remake the right hand support for the throttle pedal. That's roughly where the steering column is going to come through there. We've installed a couple of aluminium pads on the standard BMW steel brake pedals, and we've modified the throttle pedal to be a free floating one instead of a floor hinged one as on the BMW. Okay, there you can see the horizontal cross link between the pedal assembly and the servo. The left hand thread at one end, right hand thread at the other end. There's a new clutch master cylinder in there, and at the top of the clutch master cylinder you can see the fixing bolt there, which is an eccentric cam which you can adjust the length of the pedal travel, so you want that on the maximum. On the top of the brake pedal you can also see the brake light switch just there with 2 wires on it to connect straight into your loom. Here you can see the rack installed, the servo with a new master cylinder, and the reservoir reversed so that the filler cap for the reservoir is now at the back. There's the back of the pedal assembly, the 5 mounting bolts. There you can see the hole for the tube that goes up to the clutch master cylinder. There's the bottom of the master cylinder, and this is the hole where the steering link comes through between the rack and the column. This is our stainless battery tray mounted on the 2 fore to aft little plates welded into the chassis. We've got 4 fixing holes. These are M5 bolts on the fixing plates. They're drilled right through with a nut on the back, and they're drilled into the front chassis tube with riv nuts. They're M5 countersunk stainless bolts, sealed with a little bit of polyurethane just to stop any acid getting through should the battery leak. Okay, we're going to be fitting the rear suspension. This is the bottom wishbone brackets. First thing we do is just take a little bit of the bush grease, just wipe around on the inside of all the brackets, and then we push the bushes in. They're a pretty good fit, so you need to get them in as best you can. And this is called a podger. It's a screwdriver. Big screwdriver. You can just use it to lever over the stainless sleeve in the right position. If we can, we like to put the bolts in front to back wherever possible. Okay. Washer, nylock. Do the same for the top one. We fitted the top wishbone and the bottom wishbone. This is the toe-in adjuster link for the rear wheels we fitted earlier. You can see the washers spaced in between these two brackets to keep it central. Doesn't matter about setting the length at this stage. Just keep it all loose. This is a top ball joint, one with a bigger thread, 5/8 thread. Plenty of copper slip grease on there. Set it in about halfway at this stage. You can tighten all the bolts up on the wishbones, on the pickup points. Tighten them as tight as you like, and there we go. They'll still move on the polyurethane bushes. Right, we're fitting the rear shock absorber. You can see that the gap between these two plates is bigger than the bush in the shock absorber, which means we need to space it each side with washers. Now this shock absorber should be vertical, so you won't know exactly how many washers you need until the rear upright is on and it's bolted to the rear upright. So at the moment we just put 2 at the back and 1 at the front. Plenty of copper grease and the bolt, and as usual, washer and nylock. Okay, here's the suspension assembled. We have the shock absorber fixed at the top, 2 3/4 inch bolt, spaced equally between these two plates, or as equally as you can. There's 2 washers there and 1 washer there. At the bottom of the shock absorber we have a fixing through the rod end, through the shock absorber and through the upright casting with a 5-inch bolt. Now this is one of the chamfered bolts that you'll find in the kit. Chamfered to give clearance on a 15-inch wheel rim. If you're running 15-inch wheels, you need to make sure that that 5-inch bolt with the chamfer goes in this position on both sides of the car, and it will give you a minimum clearance between the bolt head and the wheel rim. If you're running 16s or 17s, not a problem. Here the 5-inch bolt goes through a washer, through the rod end, another washer, through the shock body, another washer, through the casting, and then a washer and a nylock on the back. Just make sure when you're assembling it that there's clearance between the shock body and the toe link, and the shock body and the upright. If you assemble this all without the spring in the shock absorber, you can move the suspension up and down through its travel to make sure you've got clearance all round. As a general rule of thumb, the bottom wishbone is horizontal as you set it up. You can sit everything on a block of wood while you're assembling it. Just chop the whole thing up with a block of wood underneath the upright just to hold it in place. It's a bit fiddly, but there it is. There's a 4.5-inch bolt this side through the pickup point, the rubber bush, no washers, straight into the upright with a nylock and a washer on the back. Don't tighten this one up, don't tighten this one up, and don't tighten this one up. This is the camber adjustment on the rear wheel. You see we put the rod end into the top wishbone, and in there's a loose sleeve which comes with the kit, a little stainless sleeve. So the bolt goes in through this way, through the sleeve, through the rod end, and there you'll see there's a gap. This stainless sleeve is designed to slide in this casting, so that when you tighten this bolt up, this stainless sleeve will pull through the casting and pinch the upright to give you a nice firm joint there. But don't do it up yet. You need to set your camber on your wheel when the engine's in and the car is finished and on the ground, and then you can set the camber by moving this rod end in and out and then tighten up the bolt. Same with these. This is a rubber bush. Don't tighten up the rubber bush until the car's on the ground. Once you've got it at the right height, you can tighten it up. Same goes for this top shock mount and this bottom bolt here, because these are rubber bushes in the shock. Tighten them only up, tighten them up when the car is on the ground at its normal ride position. And we're going to now put the brakes on the back. You can see on this casting there are two sets of holes for the caliper mounts drilled in here. Which caliper mounts you use will determine which side of the car each upright goes, because they're handed. These holes that are closer to the edge of the casting are for the Cosworth rear caliper, which has a slightly larger vented disc, and these two are for the standard Scorpio rear caliper. The caliper always goes to the front of the car, towards the front, so if you're going to use the Cosworth stuff, you need to have these mounts this side. And Scorpio